From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. A man claiming to be a CBS journalist attempted self-immolation during a Free Palestine protest near the White House on Saturday. Footage from the scene shows the man engulfed in flames, raising his left arm while screaming accusations of misinformation at the network. Bystanders rushed to extinguish the flames, and the man was later taken to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. This marks at least the fourth self-immolation protest against the Biden administration's policy related to Israel and its war on Gaza. In February, 25-year-old Aaron Bushnell died in a hospital after setting himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. On September 11th, a man identified as Matt Nelson set himself on fire near the Israeli consulate in Boston and died days later. The demonstration near the White House marked the first anniversary of Israel's assault on Gaza. Thousands of protesters in cities like London, Paris, Rome, New York, and Toronto rallied over the weekend against Israel's ongoing violence in Gaza and the Middle East. It marked the somber approach of the first anniversary of Israel's war on Gaza today. In London, about 40,000 Free Palestine demonstrators voiced their demands. In New York's iconic Times Square, chants such as "Gaza, Lebanon, you will rise, the people are by your side," echoed through the crowd. Banners calling for an arms embargo against Israel were prominently displayed. In Jakarta, Indonesia, protesters swarmed the U.S. embassy, pressing the United States to cease its weapons supplies to Israel. Tensions escalated in Rome as police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse crowds. In the capital of the Philippines, Manila, activists who were barred from demonstrating at the U.S. embassy clashed with police. In Dublin, Ireland, large crowds gathered to demand an end to Israel's ongoing slaughter in Palestine. Demonstrators also appealed to countries worldwide to join Ireland in officially recognizing the state of Palestine. In Scotland, former First Minister Humza Yousaf led a significant march, emphasizing the need for a peaceful resolution and justice for Palestinians. Canadian Member of Parliament Jagmeet Singh took a firm stand in Parliament, demanding the government take immediate action to halt genocide in Palestine. Singh's speech highlighted the urgency of the situation and called for Canada to play a more active role in seeking a peaceful resolution. In related news, more than 3,000 Free Palestine activists rallied near the White House on Saturday, marking nearly a year of Israel's war on Gaza. The demonstration at Lafayette Park transformed into a march, with protesters chanting "Free Palestine." They displayed signs calling for an end to U.S. aid to Israel and an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Activist Medea Benjamin of the group Code Pink emphasized the urgent need for action, criticizing U.S. support for Israel and urging a halt to arms transfers. She said, "Public opinion shows we want action, not words." Other speakers at the march also stressed that the situation constitutes genocide against Palestinians, calling on President Joe Biden to abide by human rights laws. Jewish protester Liana Smith condemned Israel's violence done in the name of Judaism, asserting that it conflicts with true Jewish values. Anti-war activist Carrie Muniak urged Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to stop arms supplies to Israel. She said by sending arms, the Biden administration is breaking the Leahy Law, which requires the U.S. to withhold military assistance if there is credible evidence of human rights violations. Israel has intensified airstrikes on Gaza, launching more than 100 attacks since Saturday evening. On Sunday, the army issued evacuation orders to residents in northern Gaza, urging them to relocate to Al-Mawasi in Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. Israeli spokesperson Avichai Adrai declared the area a combat zone, designating two main roads as humanitarian corridors for safe passage. Human rights groups have condemned these orders, citing previous instances where Israel targeted displaced Palestinians, even in supposed safe zones. On July 13th, the Israeli army targeted camps of displaced people in Mawasi, killing more than 90 Palestinians and injuring nearly 300. Despite international calls for a ceasefire, the Israeli offensive continues. Israel has killed more than 41,800 Palestinians and displaced nearly the entire population. However, a report in the British medical journal The Lancet in July said Israel has killed approximately 186,000 Palestinians. Israel is facing a genocide case at the International Court of Justice over its ongoing war and violence in Gaza. Palestinian journalists held a protest in Gaza against Israel's killing of journalist Hassan Hamad. Protesters displayed banners that said "No to press targeting" and "Journalism is not a crime." Anadolu news agency cameraman Hamad was killed in an Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza, raising the death toll of journalists since last October 7th to 175. Thousands of Muslims gathered at the Islamic Center of America in Dearborn, Michigan on Sunday to attend the funeral of Hajj Kamal Ahmad Jawad. Jawad was a Dearborn resident killed by an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon on October 1st. He was visiting the country to meet his elderly mother. At the commemoration service, Jawad's children spoke about his generosity, humor, and unflinching resolve in the face of danger as Lebanon faces continuous attacks by Israel. His last voice message to the family was, "We are okay, but if something happens to me, your obligation is to the poor." Mystery tremor in Iran sparks nuclear test speculation. Details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. A seismic event in Iran's Samana province on Saturday has fueled speculation about whether it was an earthquake or a covert nuclear test. The 4.6 magnitude quake occurred near the city of Aradan at a shallow depth of approximately 6 miles. Its proximity to suspected nuclear facilities has prompted speculation. Social media platforms, especially X, were flooded with theories linking the tremor to Iran's nuclear activities amid Israel's ongoing assault on Palestine and Lebanon. While some argued the quake might signal a nuclear test, experts remain cautious. Iran lies on active fault lines, and experts say there has been no evidence, such as radioactive fallout, to confirm a nuclear explosion. With no official statements from Iranian authorities and no immediate international response, the cause remains uncertain. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson has criticized Democrats, claiming their rhetoric has incited dangerous actions. In an interview on ABC's This Week, Johnson argued that top Democrats, including presidential nominee Kamala Harris, have labeled Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump a threat to democracy. Johnson claims this is absolute nonsense. He says such statements contribute to a climate that encourages violence. Johnson's statement comes after a recent rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump faced an assassination attempt earlier this year. President Joe Biden had previously called for a de-escalation of political tensions, emphasizing the need for calmer discourse. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is stressing the need for a strong electoral mandate from the American people as Election Day approaches. Speaking at a rally in Juneau, Wisconsin on Sunday, he urged his supporters to turn out in record numbers to secure a decisive victory. Trump drew parallels to pandemic restrictions, saying, "We need a mandate in the vote, and we're going to get it." With the federal government closely divided, with Democrats holding a slim 51 to 49 Senate majority and Republicans leading the House by a narrow margin, every vote counts. Current polls show Trump and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris locked in a tight race, particularly in key battleground states, suggesting a highly competitive election ahead. Oklahoma's controversial plan to mandate the purchase of Christian Bibles for public schools has sparked criticism, with allegations of a grift to benefit Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. Recent reports indicate the only Bibles meeting the state's strict specifications may be Trump-endorsed editions, including the God Bless the USA Bible by Lee Greenwood. Costing $60, this Bible is part of a scheme led by State Superintendent Ryan Walters, who is pushing to allocate millions in taxpayer dollars to the initiative. The Education Department is planning to purchase 55,000 Bibles. Critics, including civil rights groups, warn that this effort to introduce Christian teachings into classrooms violates legal boundaries. Activists assert such a mandate is a blatant attempt at indoctrination and call for transparency about the funding. The U.S. has blacklisted 2 more Chinese companies, bringing the total to 75 under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, or UFLPA. The UFLPA aims to combat forced labor practices against the Uyghurs in occupied East Turkestan, which China calls Xinjiang. The move was announced by the Department of Homeland Security. It prohibits imports from Baowu Group, Xinjiang Bayi Iron and Steel Company, and Gangji Food Ingredients Company, effective October 3rd. House Speaker Mike Johnson emphasized Congress's commitment to addressing Chinese companies exploiting forced labor and avoiding tariffs via the de minimis loophole, which allows goods under $800 to bypass U.S. customs checks. President Joe Biden has also proposed measures to tighten these regulations, potentially impacting imports from fast fashion retailers. Advocacy groups are urging more stringent actions to eliminate forced labor in supply chains. They highlight the ongoing humanitarian crisis faced by Uyghurs and other minority groups. Nearly 1,200 Muslims were booked in India following protests demanding legal action against Hindu priest Yati Narsingh Anand for his derogatory comments regarding Prophet Muhammad. Demonstrators clashed with police in Amravati town in the western state of Maharashtra, resulting in injuries. Earlier, a case was filed against Narsingh Anand in the state of Uttar Pradesh. This was in response to his inflammatory speech, condemned as blasphemous by Jamiat Ulama-e-Hind, India's largest Muslim organization. The incident has sparked widespread outrage, with calls for accountability against the priest, who has faced legal issues in the past for similar statements. The UN Office on Genocide Prevention has introduced a groundbreaking method to monitor social media for hate speech. The three-step process focuses on real-time data collection, content classification, and trend analysis, assisting both manual and AI monitoring projects. Unveiled on Friday and supported by the UK, the initiative seeks to align with international human rights standards while enhancing the UN's ongoing efforts against online hate. Special Advisor Alice Wairimu Nderitu emphasizes its potential to protect fundamental rights while combating hate speech that historically leads to violence and atrocities. Experts are stressing the need for a collective commitment to safeguard vulnerable populations against hate-driven violence. The UN first launched its strategy and plan of action on hate speech in 2019, recognizing that over the past 75 years, hate speech has been a precursor to atrocity crimes. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.